Welcome, I'm Dragon, and today I will be creating a simple tutorial on how to make this moving flag in Blender. This will be using the cloth simulation and some wind, but with that, let's get straight into this tutorial. So here in Blender with the default cube, I just delete this and replace it with a cylinder. This cylinder is just to get a little bit of a vague looking flagpole, and then to make it even a little bit more like a flagpole, I just move it upward in edit mode so that it's taller, and then scale it so it's not as thick and wide. And then I add a plane for the flag and rotate this 90 degrees along the y-axis. Then I move it along the y-axis so it's not in the middle of the flagpole. And finally, I get to move it along the z-axis so it looks a little bit more like a flag on a flagpole. Then in shading, I add a simple texture that I want to be my flag, and then go to UV editing to align this properly. All I had to do was rotate it. You may have to do a little bit more, but it should be fairly simple. And now we get to add the animation and make it a moving flag. So to make your flag a moving flag, you have to go into edit mode on your flag, which is the plane, and then subdivide these a couple of times. When you subdivide this just makes it a smoother look on your flag. So the more times, the better it will look, but also the harder it is for your computer to render. Then select the vertexes closest to the flagpole and create a vertex group by assigning these, and then select and deselect just to make sure that the vertex group is working. Then go into the physics tab and click cloth when you're in object mode. When you go down to this, go down to shape and pin group. This is pretty much just pinning your vertex group that you just barely created. So when you do that, you should be able to see a little bit of movement when you play your animation back, if your computer is fast enough to be able to see this. Now you can go down to collisions and select self-collisions and object collisions. This would just make it a little bit more accurate, and self-collisions is basically just making sure it's not running into itself, which would look very strange in this sort of animation. So now that that is there, we can now add the wind. To add the wind, you just go Shift-A and go down to Force Field and select Wind. It's that simple, and then all you do is you have this circle with a big arrow on it. You just take a little bit of time to rotate it the direction you feel would be the best direction for wind to come onto your flag. Once you get the rotation that you think would be best, but you can change this later, you can hit playback your animation, and as you can see in mine, I didn't have the wind very strong, so to increase this, you go into strength under the physics tab again, and you just type in a higher value. For me, I tried 500 at first. And when I played this back and rotated it a little bit more, I was able to have a much better looking flag. So if you don't quite like the value, like I thought this was a little bit too much, you can go into the settings again and change the strength. I changed mine down to 300 and it worked pretty well. But yours will be depending on how you made it, how big it is. There's a lot of variables to how this works. Another thing that you can change is in cloth settings. You could change the weight of your flag just to make it look a little bit better, or maybe it doesn't make it look better. It's all up to experimentation and seeing what works well for you. But then something that I think looks really good on these flags is if you add a little bit of thickness for it. So all I did was go into solidify and add just a very small amount of thickness. The reason for this is just so it's a little bit more thick, because a normal flag isn't completely flat like in a plane in Blender. But now that we have done all that, when you go into rendered view, you can now see that the flag and the image texture that you have applied to it, if you decide to, actually moves around, and it looks like a real flag moving around on a flagpole. The only difference is the flagpole isn't completely finished, so I will quickly speed through that and then show you how to add an HDRI. So there is the flag and the flagpole, and now let's add an HDRI. So to add the HDRI, all you do is go into World, and then add an environment texture. plug it in, and choose the HDRI. Personally, I got it from HDRI Haven. A link to that will be in the description below, but other than that, that pretty much does it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed, and bye!